Hi, I am going to explain about translation and its type. Key points are intralingual, interlingual and intersemiotic translation, metaphrase, paraphrase and imitation, literary translation and non-literary translation, oral and written translation, equivalence in translation. What is meant by translation? Translation is defined as passing message from one language to another language. Translation is an art of carrying across boundaries and barriers without losing the material that is carried over. It is not easy to define translation exactly. It has been defined differently by different scholars in different places in different points of time. In short, translation is the process of transferring thoughts, meaning, or message from the source language to the target language. Roman Jacobson, in his article on linguistic aspect of translation, he says about three types of translation. He says interpretation of verbal sign can happen in three ways. One is intralingual, another one is interlingual, and last one is intersemiotic translation. Intralingual translation. Intralingual translation is also known as rewording. It is interpretation of verbal sign by means of other sign of the same language. It means to put meaning in different words. For example, intralingual translation occurs when we produce a summary or otherwise rewrite a text in same language, say a children's version of encyclopedia. Interlingual translation. Interlingual translation or translation proper is an interpretation of verbal sign by means of some other language. For example, interlingual translation would be the Bible, assumed to be the original written in Hebrew. The Bible also underwent numerous translation into Greek and Latin and then into English. Another one example is the King James Bible version in English. So nowadays there is a Good News Bible which is modern English version translated by the American Bible Society. Intersemiotic translation. Intersemiotic translation or transmutation is an interpretation of verbal sign by means of non-verbal sign system as like novel to film or story to a play. For example, intersemiotic translation occurs when a written text is translated into different modes such as music, film or painting. Kinds of translation. Here's so many kinds of translation. Literal translation, phonological translation, graphological translation, grammatical, full, partial, total, rank-bound translation, free translation, literal translation. Types of translation. Here we see the Dryden's method of translation. Dryden, the famous English poet, was also a great translator. In his Preface of Fables and Preface to Ovid's and Epistle, he identifies the following three types of translation. One is metaphrase, another one is paraphrase, and final one is imitation. Metaphrase means word for word translation or line by line translation. Paraphrase means sense for sense translation. Imitation, free translation, transference to the text with liberal. According to Cadford, in his book A Linguistic Theory of Translation, Cadford defined translation as the replacement of textual material in one language, SL. Here SL is referred to source language by equivalent textual material in another language, TL. TL means target language. Based on extent. Full translation. It is type of translation in which the entire SL text is reproduced by the TL text materials. Partial translation. There are only some part of the SL text to be translated into TL text. Total translation. The TL material replaces all level of the SL text. Restricted translation. It is the replacement of SL textual material with equivalent TL material at only one level, whether at the phonological level, graphiological level, or level of grammar. Based on rank bound translation. It means that the selection of TL text equivalent is limited at only one rank, such as word for word equivalence or morpheme for morpheme equivalence. Unbounded translation. It can move freely up and down the rank scale. Grammatical translation. This is the restricted translation where SL grammar is replaced by equivalent TL grammar with no replacement of any other. Phonological translation. Phonological means study about sound. It is restricted translation in which SL phonology is replaced by equivalent TL phonology but with replacement of source language grammar and any other. Graphiological translation. It is study about structure of word. This is also restricted translation. Here SL graphiology is replaced by equivalent TL graphiology but with no other replacement. Equivalence in translation. Another writer, Popovic, says about four types of translation. One is linguistic equivalence, another one is paradigmatic equivalence, and third one is stylistic equivalence, and fourth one is textual equivalence. Linguistic equivalence. Linguistic equivalence is a synonym for word translation. Paradigmatic equivalence. Paradigmatic equivalence lies in similarities between the grammar of the source language and that of the target language. Stylistic equivalence. This is the functional equivalence of element in both the source language and the target language. Textual equivalence. This is the equivalence in form and shape. When there is no similar in form and shape, there is no textual equivalence. Another translator, Nida, says about two kinds of equivalence. One is formal equivalence, another one is dynamic equivalence. Formal equivalence means the translator is concerned with translating the form of the SL text into the same form of the TL text. It means poetry to poetry, drama into drama, prose into prose, concept into concept. Dynamic translation. It means the translator seeks to convey to the reader of the target language the same effect that the reading of the source language text had on him. If the SL text sadness or enlightening the translator, he tried to communicate the same sadness and happiness effect to the reader of the TL text. Conclusion. Translation is like a woman. If beautiful, it cannot be faithful, and if faithful, cannot be beautiful. All type of translation have these three. First one is loss of meaning, second one is addition of meaning, and third one is weaving of meaning. Translator becomes decoder of SL text and recoder of TL text, and between decoding and recoding fall the shadow.